Coming up in today's newscast, Israelis push for the death penalty for terrorists following the grisly murder of 19-year-old Ori Ansbacher. An Israeli Arab woman is murdered by her family in Turkey, and the tourism-centric town of Tiberias unveils a first-of-its-kind transportation initiative. The Israel police, the IDF, and the Shin Bet arrested a Palestinian suspect in Ramallah over the weekend who is thought to have horrifically murdered 19-year-old Israeli Ori Ansbacher in Jerusalem on Thursday. Ansbacher was a national service volunteer from Tekoa who worked in the Ye'elim Youth Center, but on Thursday evening she was brutally stabbed to death in Jerusalem's Ein Yael forest. She was reported missing earlier in the day and was allegedly found naked with multiple stab wounds. Well, 29-year-old Arafat al-Rafaya has since been named as the suspect in connection with the murder, and the Shin Bet charged that he left Hebron, where he lives, with a knife, saw the victim in the forest, and killed her.
במוקדם ובמאוחר, במקרה זה במוקדם, ידה ארוכה של ישראל מגיעה לכל מי שפוגע בנו, ואנחנו באים עמם חשבון. בשמי, בשם חברי הממשלה, בשם עם ישראל כולו, אני מבקש להביע את תנחומינו הכנים, שיוצאים מעומק הלב למשפחת אנסבכר ביגונם הכבד. עד סוף השבוע תושלם עבודת המטה שדרושה למימוש חוק קיזוז משכורות מחבלים.
Further details are still under wraps and a gag order is in place, however, as unsubstantiated reports and details have already been posted across the net. In fact, due to the public attention on both sides, Israeli police had to battle both Israelis and Palestinians in the case. First, Palestinian extremists rioted and tried to prevent security services from making an arrest by throwing pipe bombs, stones, and Molotov cocktails as Israeli units arrived in Ramallah. Additionally, from the other side, right-wing Israeli settlers clashed with security forces by trying to block roads in Jerusalem on Saturday while chanting "The nation demands revenge," referring to the death penalty. Right-wing lawmakers like Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked even already called for the death penalty as well, and protests broke out across the country, including in Tel Aviv, calling for the same thing. As of now, only the demolition of al-Rafaya's home has been set, though. Meanwhile, Ansbacher's mother, Naama, eulogized her daughter as a beautiful writer and a poet, and rather than calling for the death penalty or revenge, she called on people to carry out acts of kindness and to, quote, add light to the world in Ori's memory. Multiple rallies and vigils were also held in Hebron, Tel Aviv, Tekoa, and Jerusalem. Now joining us with more on last week's terror attack that left 19-year-old Ori Ansbacher dead in the woods is attorney and political analyst Gal Babayov. Gal, thank you so much for coming back in today.
Thank you for inviting.
All right, so I wish it was under better circumstances, but what can you tell us about the death penalty and who's pushing for it right now, and whether or not that's a good idea? But let's first start off with, what is the debate on the death penalty right now?
Currently in Israel, the death penalty has been banished since 1954. It was a legacy of the British Mandate, which was cancelled out of law in 1954, and the discussion regarding its validity has been going on for the past 40 or some odd years. In recent years, and let's say in the last 5 years, the political right has been pushing to reinstate the death penalty as a deterrent in Israel. Mm-hmm. The pros for that, of course, is a deterrent to try to deter people who have been acting viciously against Israelis, and in the public in general. It could be terrorists, people who are doing atrocious things to other people, such as very horrific murders, as we've seen last Thursday. The cons, the fact of the matter is that the issue has been in debate for over 40 years, if to reinstate or not, has been a political obstacle of sorts.
Well, and therein kind of, for me at least, lies the biggest question. What is the efficacy of using the death penalty as a deterrent, especially with respect to Israel and the Israel-Palestinian conflict? Because, as you said, first of all, it hasn't really been used in Israel, save for twice. Save for twice, exactly.
Adolf Eichmann under the law of persecution of Nazis, mm-hmm. and an Israeli military officer back in the 50s who acted in treason.
Exactly. So, but aside from that, we haven't killed anyone, we haven't sentenced anyone to die in Israel for terrorism or anything like that. So do we, where is this evidence from? Where is this decision-making coming from? Is it a visceral reaction, or is there really something to this?
I think it's two-phased. First of all, it's an emotional reaction to people who are saying, listen, we have to try to cover all bases and cross no lines in order to persecute justice with people who are attacking Israeli citizens for no apparent reason, i.e. terrorists in the Judea, Samaria, Gaza Strip, or even in Israel. And we've seen, unfortunately, many, many people die due to suicide attacks or people who have just made terror attacks in spite.
Sure. Well, and so, again, as you just mentioned, when a terrorist comes into Israel and performs a terrorist attack, 9 times out of 10, they don't think that they're going to walk away alive.
Exactly.
So being killed after the fact is, I fail to see how that's a real deterrent.
The general idea for people who are advocating the death penalty or capital punishment back in Israel is the fact that the people around that certain terrorist have to understand that they are not safe. We're trying to raise in Israel a generation of children who can live safely and walk around the streets without fear. Other people in other areas of Israel or in Judea and Samaria have been educating their children to attack Israelis due to the fact that they're Jewish, due to the fact that they're Israelis, the fact that we're talking about shahidim, people who are martyrs. And that is a problem when we're trying to solve, I won't say solve, but try to lessen the amount of terror attacks within Israel or outside of Judea and Samaria itself. People who think that you can advocate the death penalty will say, listen, will deter people by saying, listen, you're saying 9 times out of 10 people are going to die. This will be the 10th person who dies, will be the person who gets caught, like this this murderer was caught on Saturday night, and he will face Israeli justice in an Israeli court versus a military tribunal. The problem with the fact is that I do not, in my personal opinion, or many people who see it, do not advocate the capital punishment because, like in the United States, capital punishment is a very controversial issue. You have states that are for it, you have states that are against it. In a small population like we have here in Israel, the size of New Jersey, it's a very, very warm and hot-headed debate regarding its validity.
All right, well, I understand that there is a legislation currently on the books, it's being debated, and so we'll see where this goes and how effective it is if it does go anywhere. Gad Babayev, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
In other news, 2 Palestinians aged 14 and 18 were reportedly shot dead on Friday as Israeli soldiers responded with deadly force to explosives and rock throwers by the Gaza border. This as part of the ongoing weekly Hamas-led riots along the Gaza-Israel security barrier that have been continuing since March 2018. 5 other Palestinians were also injured this weekend when Israeli Defense Forces responded to the over 7,000 demonstrators along the fence. And further, Palestinian health ministries have also reported that the 14-year-old victim, identified now as Hassan Shelby, is related to Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. Shelby is allegedly Haniyeh's sister's grandson. Still, Israel has continued to promise a response to the violence along the border, and to that effect, 220 Palestinians have reportedly been killed in the weekly protests since March. Additionally, hundreds more have been injured, and even 1 Israeli soldier has also been killed by Hamas sniper fire. Regardless, the IDF will not sit idle as the Hamas terror group brings thousands of violent rioters to the border every weekend to burn tires, throw explosives, Molotov cocktails and stones, and attempt to infiltrate Israel. Moving on, 2 Israelis have now been killed and dozens more injured after a bus collided with a private car and overturned near Jerusalem. At least 51 people are said to be injured, with 2 in serious condition. The collision occurred on Route 443 near Beit Horon between Modi'in and Jerusalem, and police have since blocked off the road in both directions while emergency services continue rescue efforts. The cause of the crash, however, has still not yet been determined, though it is highly considered that the bus simply swerved on the wet pavement, colliding first with the car and then the median, causing the bus to flip over onto its side, trapping dozens. United Hatzalah Rescue Services, among others, arrived immediately, and members of the Hatzalah Psychotrauma and Crisis Response Units were also dispatched. Finally, Prime Minister Netanyahu was then briefed on the incident ahead of his weekly cabinet meeting.
אני עודכנתי לפני זמן קצר על התאונה הקשה שהתקיימה בכביש 443. אני מחזק את כוחות הביטחון, החילוץ וההצלה שעוסקים כעת בחילוץ ובטיפול בנפגעים. כולנו מתפללים לשלום הנפגעים. תודה רבה.
Hundreds attended the funeral of 20-year-old Arab-Israeli student Siwar Keblawi on Saturday after the woman's body was returned to her family in Al-Fahim Friday night. And prior to her death, which authorities believe to be murder, Keblawi had reportedly been living with her father in Izmit, Turkey, while studying at the university nearby. Now, Siwar's friends and family have asked that everyone wait until the end of the investigation and not publish rumors, but the details that police have revealed thus far paint an ugly picture. According to reports, Siwal first fled to Turkey with her father after getting into a family dispute, though details of the dispute have not yet been given. All we do know is that her older brother was not likely meant to find Siwal and her father in Turkey. Additionally, her brother has previously been arrested for suspected involvement in an incident that resulted in Israeli police officers getting shot. Still, her brother did reportedly find his sister and father in Izmit, where he and Siwal allegedly entered into an altercation. According to Turkish police, Siwal then attempted to barricade herself in a room away from her brother, who then kicked down the door. It was at this point that Siwal allegedly tried to escape by jumping off of the third-story balcony, a fall that she reportedly survived, barely. What happens next, though, is perhaps the worst part, as CCTV footage aired by Turkish officials shows what looks like Siwal's brother and father calmly following Siwal into the alley where she fell and dragging her back into the apartment. Once there, one or both of the men then strangled Siwal to death, as indicated by the bruising around her neck. At any rate, both Siwal's brother and father now remain in custody, and Israeli officials are cooperating fully with the authorities in Turkey. The latest election polls are out again, but according to the survey published by Channel 12 on Saturday, it looks like Prime Minister Netanyahu's Likud party is likely to win out, even if rivals Benny Gantz and Yair Lapid join forces and take more seats in the election. In fact, the results of the poll gave a Gantz-Lapid unity bloc 36 seats in the Knesset to the Likud's 32, should elections be held today. But it added that numbers wouldn't necessarily be enough by themselves to form a government. The poll was conducted by Midgam and iPanel on February 7th, and it surveyed over 500 people for a margin of error of 4.4%. What resulted was a pretty balanced turnout no matter what, though. If Gantz and Lapid unite their Israel Resilience and Yesh Atid parties, they may actually beat the Likud in national elections. But there would be very few natural partners left in the Knesset with which they could form a 61-seat majority bloc necessary for a coalition. Further, if Yesh Atid and Israel Resilience don't unite, which is more likely at this point, the poll found that they'd be largely in exactly the same situation. Also, a poll released by Channel 13 indicated nearly the exact same findings. Now, as for the remaining factions, following the failure to unite between the Jewish Home and the National Union parties over the weekend, polls put every other party from the New Right to the Meretz with 8 or fewer mandates. Most, however, struggled to even pass the electoral threshold of 3.25%. Typically, when people think of secular and liberal Israeli citizens and policy, they think of Tel Aviv, and typically they wouldn't be wrong. But there is nothing typical about the latest news coming out from Tiberias, the tourism-centric city situated on the banks of the Sea of Galilee. And it's just now unveiled for the first time ever buses that run on the Sabbath. And better yet, the buses are free of cost.
אתם מוזמנים להגיע לטיילת, לראות, היום יהיו פה בין 20 ל-30 אלף איש, למרות הגשם, למרות המזג האוויר, שבינתיים הוא איתנו, וכולם מוזמנים לראות, היסטוריה בטבריה, פעם הראשונה, תחבורה ציבורית ובחינם בשבת.
Granted, only 2 buses are running right now along just one route to and from the promenade, but recently elected Mayor Ron Kobi promises that this first line is just the first of many. The initiative was put together by Mayor Kobi and the Noat Nua organization, and this pilot will have to run successfully on its own for a time before more routes are added. The announcement has been met with mixed feelings, however, as 22% of the city is made up of ultra-Orthodox Jews who heavily argued against the plan for violating the status quo in the city. But Kobi has spoken often about fighting for all the residents of the city, both before and after his November election to office. And in a statement earlier in the week, Kobi also explained again that the bus line initiative did not come from thoughts against the religious, but rather, quote, from a social struggle so that the people in Tiberias who can't afford a private car or taxi will be able to reach the sea on Shabbat. He then added that residents weren't the only ones complaining, saying that, quote, over the past month we've received complaints from tens of thousands of visitors to the city's promenade over the lack of public transportation on Shabbat. The tourism centers in the city will continue to remain open on Shabbat, as befitting for a central, progressive, and enlightened tourist city. Eastern Europe is seeing a major tourism boom, especially from Israel, and joining us now in the studio with more is none other than Natasha Kirchuk. So, Natasha, Italy, Spain, France, and the UK are still amongst the most frequented vacation hubs for Israelis, I understand, and internationals alike. But is that changing? Is it beginning to change?
Absolutely. Lesser-known vacation destinations in Eastern Europe are actually beginning to boom with tourism. Countries like Ukraine, Romania, and Moldova are seeing a visitation spike by almost 20% in the last year alone.
All right, so tell us, about what some of these countries have to offer.
Well, let's focus on Ukraine first. In 2013, 24.7 million people, almost 25 million people visited the country. But then the numbers started dropping when Russia invaded Crimea in 2014 and, of course, launched its war on Ukraine. Visitors nearly halved, But now, 4 years later, we're seeing a massive recovery.
And why is that?
Well, Ukraine is now being referred to as a hidden gem in the capital of Kyiv. It's Parisian-style boulevards, Byzantine masterpieces, and obviously incredible food have visitors drooling. And the city of Odessa, which is located on the Black Sea, has become a beach vacation spot. Sounds unlikely. And it stands out for its beautiful views and really low prices. By the way, there's an Israeli company called Green Park, and they have a luxury building project right now on the Black Sea. They're selling apartments for as low as $69,000 with sea view. So it could be the perfect investment as well, given this growing tourism.
It sounds like it is. So, okay, so what are some other Eastern European countries that are maybe becoming more popular to visit as well?
Well, tourism to the Republic of Moldova has increased by 19.6% over the last year. The country only has 2.4 million people, but its burgeoning wine scene and its unspoiled natural beauty has tourists going crazy. And the country has some of the best up-and-coming vineyards on the continent as well. There's also Macedonia. It's becoming a huge hit with a 23.5% increase in tourism. The country's longtime claim to fame stems from their hometown hero, Alexander the Great. And visitors can plan luxury trips that combine visiting Macedonia with several of its neighbors like Croatia and Montenegro. Now, Armenia is also growing increasingly popular with an 18.65% growth in visitors. The country touts historical riches like Mount Ararat, where Noah's Ark is said to have made landfall. And of course, people love the fact that the Kardashians are the country's most famous descendants.
Of course. Well, I mean, I, of course, love the Kardashians.
You love the Kardashians.
Of course. But I think I'd probably visit the country, to try the brandy.
Yeah,
I think that
Armenia
would be more
actually
of a
has
pull for me.
tons of brandy distilleries, incredible carpet makers, and visitors can even learn how to make lavash, which is a typical local flatbread
delicious.
with an Armenian family.
All right, and then what about Romania?
Well, Romania is one of the fastest growing destinations, especially for Israelis. In the last decade, tourism increased by 638%.
Wow.
And I even went there myself. The country boasts incredible rural Transylvanian villages, some of the most beautiful castles in all of Europe, and breathtaking nature. So if you like kayaking, you have to try it down the Danube River as well. That's my advice.
All right, well, it's no wonder that tourism is booming in Eastern Europe right now. It looks like I might want to book myself a ticket very soon after this conversation. All right, so while I've got you here, Natasha, I understand that we have another amazing episode of Insight to Israel tonight. Tell us about that, please.
All right, so we have a couple of unique segments coming up. One of the segments that stands out to me is a deeper look into Jerusalem syndrome. It's a cultural phenomenon where tourists who come to Jerusalem, you could say, get a little bit too excited and end up having mental delusions related to biblical stories. So you've had people, tourists who have come to Israel, thinking that they're going to...
the next Messiah or something.
Oh, not only the next Messiah, trying to cook the Last Supper, thinking that they're going to give birth to baby Jesus. You name it, these stories are there. And there are about 50 cases of this syndrome every year. So we decided to head to Jerusalem and kind of meet some of the people, the tour guides who have dealt with this firsthand, and also doctors who have had to deal with tourists in mental hospitals afterwards.
And I have to ask, is this real? Because, okay, you're saying like 50 documented cases of Jerusalem syndrome. How real is this? Because I can't picture somebody thinking that they're really the next
right.
Jesus.
So what I will say, and obviously I don't want to reveal everything because I want everybody to watch the show,
of course.
Is that about 80% of these cases are with tourists who have had previous psychological issues in the past and are essentially triggered upon coming to Jerusalem, or actually come to Jerusalem with a mission in mind. Like I said, cooking the Last Supper, tearing stones out of the Wailing Wall, you name it. But I'm not going to give too much more information. You guys just have to watch the show.
All right. Well, I think that's enough of a teaser now. I don't want to give away too much information. I know we're also talking about lone soldiers. What are some of the other subjects on this week's episode?
There's also a piece about an amazing spa night that was thrown for some male lone soldiers. The Lone Soldier Center in Jerusalem decided to throw a spa night for female soldiers, and the men wanted a bit of that too, so we actually went to check out what was happening at the event.
All right. Well, again, I can't wait to see it. I hope everybody else at home catches it too.
Absolutely.
Insight to Israel with Natasha Kirchak. Natasha, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Aaron.
All right, speaking of teasers, let's turn now to ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh for a sneak peek at the latest installment of Cruising Israel.
I bet you didn't think that in such a small country like Israel, you could go from full desert view to snowy mountaintops in just 2 hours. But here I am. I'm standing here right now at the Mount Hermon Ski and Snowboarding Resort, which is actually Israel's only ski resort. I have no idea how to ski or snowboard, so I'm going to link up with one of the instructors here at the resort, and this should be interesting. Welcome to the Hermon!
Welcome to the Hermon!
This is a very unique place. Why? Because it's the only one. It's not Europe. It's not huge slopes, but as I said, I can take any good skier anywhere here. There will be a slope to challenge him.
A lot of people get like shocked that it's a 2-hour drive from like the beach to
Yes,
this mountainous, beautiful.
Israel is a very special place.
Here in Israel, that's what I love about our country. You can go from one side to the other and have several weathers.
What type of activities do you guys have here?
So the first one, of course, is the chairlift that takes you from the bottom station to the top station, and then you can have a full view of the mountain. The other one, we have alpine coaster that you can control the speed while you drive it. It's a nice one. Another one is, of course, the plastic sleds for kids, and kids love it.
People often think that there's not too much to do in Israel in the wintertime. Now, while most of the year the Israeli forecast shows sunny skies and not too low of temperatures, there's about 50 days out of the year where Mount Hermon Ski Resort is open for everyone. This gorgeous, powdered sugar-looking view is visited by around 300,000 visitors a year, generally between January and March.
In a good season, we had 370,000 visitors and skiers. Yeah, that depends on the snow. In Israel, we call it the Eyes of Israel because this is the highest place in Israel, and you have a view. And it's also in the borders between Lebanon and Syria and Israel. It's a very unique place.
We are ready to ski, people. Let's get going. Okay, wait. Pizza french fries, pizza french fries, pizza french fries, pizza french fries.
This is a very special mountain, you know, because if you can ski in the Hermon mountain, you can ski anywhere in the world.
I'm so nervous. We're going on this ski lift right now. It's going to take us to the top of the mountain where you can literally see everything below us. I'm shaking, I cannot. Fairly colder here on top of the mountain. There are hundreds of people here. Kids, teenagers, adults, sledding down, making snowmen, throwing snowballs, doing all the fun activities that you could do. But on the top of the mountain, I'm trying to get down from this mountain right now. This is giving me a little anxiety, but it's such a beautiful view. Bye guys, see you. That was such a fun experience. I didn't go too fast because I got really nervous, but it was great. So freeing. You get to see everything from the top of the mountain. Wow, I'm having such a great day.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day, in honor of the many young individuals who come to Israel on their own and still serve bravely in the IDF, today's words are chayal boded, meaning a lone soldier. Now, a soldier or a chayal isn't considered boded or alone unless he or she is quite literally alone in the country. That includes every ole chadash or chadasha, or new immigrant that arrives without immediate family, and that also includes every individual Israeli citizen who had to leave their home for one reason or another, giving up their support system in the process. And that means that every chayal boded or lone soldier who ever served in the Israeli Defense Forces also did so with the added stresses and responsibilities of an adult living alone and in a foreign country. So believe me when I say it's really hard, and consider contributing to one of the many organizations that support our chayalim bodedim or lone soldiers. Organizations like the Friends of the IDF, Yachad, and the Lone Soldier Center of Tel Aviv. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should have some scattered showers and a low of about 51 or 11 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow you can expect partly cloudy skies and a slight rise in temperatures to a high of around 64 or 18 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.64 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you so much for watching.